Yes, yes. Jackson, it's Balloon Party. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying your day. It's driven by Munganess, St. Louis Acura, Munganess, Burkhardt, Alton, Toyota. Get involved in the YouTube chat. It's active as the day is long. And also the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. The YouTube studio cameras are sponsored by Air Alliance Team. Get on in there and talk it over with Don Pepe and the hundreds of other friends at the Feather here on Balloon Party. We're bringing JR on right away, aren't we? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Joining us right now, right out of the gate, is Jeremy Rutherford, because within the last approximate half hour, something like that, the Blues announced that Doug Armstrong has hired Drew Bannister and made a 2-year contract extension that has been accepted for the interim coach to be the new head coach of the St. Louis Blues. Reactions that I have gotten so far are mixed from people. Let's see what Jeremy Rutherford has to say. Good morning, JR.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, called out of the bullpen here. I thought I was going to listen to Jackson do a six-shooter and break this down.
Yeah, I kind of thought so, too. The six-shooter is kind of built around the Knicks, the late moving screen charge against the Pacers, and what's going on with the Nuggets and Timberwolves. And I think we're going to spend the other 50 minutes on that. But I called an audible, and I said, you know what, maybe we should lead with the Blues hiring a head coach, and that's what I decided to do. Texted you, you got on, and it's great to talk it over with you. Number one, let me start with this. Are you surprised that Drew Bannister gets the gig?
I'm not surprised, Tim. I think that the fact that Doug Armstrong held on to Drew Bannister at the end of the year and said that he was one of the finalists, he said that the list was not that extensive. You know, you had heard rumblings in the past couple of weeks that potentially there could be some interest, mutual interest with Jim Montgomery, even though he has 1 year left on his contract. What happens if they lose that first-round series to Toronto? They did not. I don't think that the timing is just coincidence that after the Bruins advance and beat Toronto and go on to the second round that we have this announcement. I think Doug Armstrong sees a situation, and I just tweeted it, Tim, here. He had a coach in Drew Bannister who did a good job under the circumstances last year. Doug Armstrong wanted accountability, and I think that Drew Bannister provided that. I still think that this roster is the biggest issue, and until that improves, it doesn't matter who's coaching this team. And I think the 2-year contract, for those who haven't heard the terms of the contract, it's a 2-year deal, I think gives both sides time to for Drew Bannister to prove himself and for Doug Armstrong to see what he has in a full-time head coach. So not very surprising, but I think that moving forward, Drew Bannister is going to be the guy, and the Blues are happy for that.
I enjoy that you're with me on the Jim Montgomery thing. I actually think that if that puck with 5 seconds left in Game 7 of the Bruins and Leafs series that nearly was an own goal that would have sent the Leafs to the second round and the Bruins home, second straight year, blowing a 3-1 series lead, I think Jim Montgomery is the Blues coach and Drew Bannister is out. What do you think of that theory?
Yeah, I wonder if Drew Bannister was back at home in Thunder Bay, Ontario, wearing a Boston Bruins jersey, watching this series because, and that was a heck of a reactionary save there that prevents disaster for the Boston Bruins. You know, we're going to hear from Doug Armstrong and Drew Bannister here at 11 o'clock, and the station's going to carry the press conference.
Yep.
You know, I'll ask Doug Armstrong, whatever, as far as we can press on that issue. Typically, he doesn't, go there in terms of acknowledging what his options were and who he talked to. But I think that we all knew when a round ended and some coaches were knocked out of the playoffs that Doug Armstrong would be able to reach out and contact some of those individuals if he had interest in them. He won't be able to do that with Jim Montgomery now that he's advanced to that second round. And I think that we all know that he would have been a good fit here in St. Louis. So it all adds up to me. Whether Doug Armstrong says anything on that front, I guess we'll find out.
And furthermore, Boston won last night to open up the second round of the Eastern Conference semifinals. So with regard to, the timing of this, I don't want to say it's suspicious because then it makes it sound like there was nefarious activity. Doug Armstrong was straightforward with that he's on the short list. The list is very short. Do you think there was anybody beyond, if indeed Montgomery was on it, beyond Montgomery and Bannister?
Well, I know that they had some interest in David Carl and expressed that. We've kind of broken that down in the past couple of weeks. He's the University of Denver coach. I think the announcement that said Carl was going to coach the USA hockey team at the World Junior Championships next December and January kind of was a sign that even if the Blues did express interest, it was probably known both sides. The Blues were told that he's going to stay at the University of Denver. So I think he was probably part of that list. And I think once it got down to just the final two, and I'd kind of heard that in the last week or two that it was down to a final two, and whether that was Bannister and Montgomery, we don't know if we'll find that out. But I think the Blues were in a situation, Tim, where the list of coaches that made sense for the situation that they're in was relatively small. Like Doug Armstrong said at the press conference at the end of the year, they weren't looking for that Stanley Cup coach who could put them 2, 3, 4% above in terms of who they could hire because they've got that Stanley Cup experience, and that's the type of guy that they were looking for. So that to me ruled out a Joel Quenneville type and some others. Let's say a John Cooper, even if he's looking for a change of scenery. That's a Stanley Cup type coach. I know Jim Montgomery's had a lot of success in the regular season, but he hasn't had that playoff or Stanley Cup success. So I think that he still fit the mold of a guy who could come in and guide the young kids and also help the Blues be competitive the next couple of years. So he's the reason why I think recently I believe that could be a possibility after I initially did not think it would. So I think Montgomery, I think Bannister, I think Carl was probably in the mix at some point before they got to today.
Kevin Lorenz, who used to produce on TMA and certainly monitors things quite actively with the Blues and is active on Twitter with regards to the Blues, texted me this. I think this implies a few things. Number one, the team was at least heavily interested in other options they explored or waited on before settling on Bannister, and I think that's one of the things that people who are critical feel like, well, this is settling. I mean, if they really wanted him, you could have just hired him right away. So clearly, the timing is not necessarily coincidental, as you made reference to earlier, JR. Secondly, they're comfortable with Bannister, who has developed players in the AHL at this stage in their whatever, whether it be tool or build. And three, they're not in the, quote, time to contend stage of their whatever, and will either be comfortable with Bannister in 2 years or ready to contend with a more established coach by then. What are your thoughts on his 3 bullet points?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in professional sports and optics in a lot of situations, but I would throw the optics out the window on this one for this reason. Yes, because they didn't name Bannister their head coach the day after the season or even sooner. It doesn't look great. If you're behind a guy, you think he can be your guy, name him the head coach. But what if that puck that you just talked about, goes in against the Boston Bruins and they lose, Toronto advances, and all of a sudden you find out 6 weeks later Montgomery wants out of Boston for whatever reason. He would have loved to have come back to St. Louis because of his time here. His wife lives here. The family loved it here. There wasn't an opportunity to be a head coach here because Craig Berube was there at the time, so he had to leave and go to Boston. But he would have come back this offseason. Then I think Blues fans, you're kind of kicking yourself if you find that out after the fact. So I think in this situation, like I said, you have to throw the optics out and just let that process play out. I think Drew Bannister, talking to him, even off the record on the phone chats, he said, hey, look, they didn't promise me anything. I'm just glad to be in the mix, and we'll see what happens here. And so I think they waited that time out. They got to a point where they realized whatever option, whether it be Montgomery or something else, wasn't going to be the right option or wasn't going to happen, and they circled back to Bannister, and they're moving forward. And kind of to answer Kevin's other points, I do think this brings some stability. I think it comes at a time when the Blues need stability. The young players need a familiar face. I think this is going to be good for a lot of younger Blues players, and so I think having Drew Bannister come back, and we're going to hear from him, Tim. But he said he's going to be able to install some things that he wasn't able to when he came in on the fly, replacing Craig Berube. So I think there is some reason for stability and optimism with Drew Bannister coming back.
I think that one of the unique spots that we have, and I think both of our careers here in St. Louis, you as a writer and me in television and radio, is this is the first time that both the Blues and Cardinals, the Cardinals because it's been so rare, but the Blues along with them, are really experiencing significant criticism because the Cardinals are getting so much of it. It's kind of taking the eye off the Blues, even though the Blues would certainly have criticism that is warranted. And again, I think that there is like oh my God, this means another couple of years of mediocrity at best. That if you're looking at criticism in the last hour since this announcement, that is what they are receiving. How conscientious, in your opinion or in your knowledge, of the fan base and the fan base's excitement and or apathy and or anger are the Blues when it comes to this move? Because I don't necessarily think this one's going to be met with a lot of enthusiasm, even if it may be the, right one, as opposed to take your pick of whatever other recycled NHL coach, as opposed to, say, a Jim Montgomery.
Yeah, I think that the reaction that I've seen, social media, text messages, things like that, just here in the last hour, has probably been 60% negative. This is a snooze. This
right.
seems like something the Cardinals would do at this point. And then probably 40%, hey, good for him. He did a good job. So I think it is, angling that way a little bit. Do the Blues pay attention to that? Sure, they do. I think every organization does. They have an ear open to it. Does it guide anything that they do? I don't think so. So especially with Doug Armstrong, he's a strong-minded individual, and he's going to do what he does. I guess the question that I would have for the 60% of the people who are, not in favor of the move or second guessing it is, what did you expect as a Blues fan to happen the next couple of years? I don't necessarily believe that naming Drew Bannister sets the organization back in terms of the timeline and when things are going to happen. I think it's an honest outlook by Doug Armstrong to realize that the next couple of years are going to be that retool period. The list of coaches and people who would want a job in a situation like this, and the type of coach, as I said, that Doug Armstrong was going after was, I think, pretty small. And I think Drew Bannister has shown the ability, whether it be holding players accountable or grooming young players, that he can at least handle this retool for the next couple of years. And then guess what? You've got that cushion. You can see how he handled it. What happened? Did he deserve to keep the job? Are there other coaches out there at that point who could come in? We've seen Doug Armstrong do this in the past where he had a young guy like a Davis Payne, and it didn't, 2 months, 3 months into that next full season, it wasn't working out. And he made the hire to a hockey coach, Ken Hitchcock, a guy who's been around for a while. So I think that with Doug Armstrong, he knew the situation. He thought maybe there could be some, backlash, whatever you want to call it, with the fans, but he knows that this is the best situation for the Blues at this point. I don't see it as a setback. I just see it as a situation where they're being realistic with where they're at right now.
We've seen Craig Berube on the NHL Stanley Cup playoff coverage on the anchor desk, and certainly his name has gotten some traction in Toronto and other job openings around the league. Do you think he will be a head coach with another organization within the next couple of months?
Yeah, I think he will somewhere. And I don't know if you caught it the other night, but on that TNT set, he and then Biz Nasty were kind of throwing barbs back and forth at each other. And Biz said, "Be careful, I'm going to tell everybody where you're coaching next." So, so I don't
was
know
that before or after the Leafs were eliminated?
Yeah, I think it was after the next night because Biz was kind of upset. So, so I think we'll land him somewhere. But just as we're speaking here, it looks like Ottawa has named Travis Green their next coach. So, some jobs are going to get filled here. We saw Buffalo get filled already, but, there's still going to be some openings, and there could be some more openings. Even Toronto, where we'll hear from their management, I think on Friday. They pushed that press conference back to Friday. So, could Berube land there? I think he's going to land somewhere. The last time I spoke to him, and again, it's been several months, but he just said, I want to take my time. I want to make sure it's the perfect situation for me, in terms of ownership, everything around me, and that's the one I'm going to jump at. And I think that he's still, going to be a head coach in this league, and I think we're going to see that probably in the next few weeks, and I think he's going to be behind a bench next season.
Well, there it is. JR, I know you will be all over it with the press conference coming up at 11 o'clock. That will be carried live here on 101 ESPN. Drew Bannister named full-time Blues head coach. Press conference coming up at 11 o'clock, and you can hear it live here with Drew Bannister and Doug Armstrong on 101 ESPN. JR, thanks for the appearance on the program on short notice. We appreciate it.
Anytime, Tim. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. That's
Thanks,
Jeremy Rutherford with us here on Balloon Party. We are late for a break. We'll take a break, come back with our thoughts. In addition to the local 9, Jackson is struggling a mite bit, and there's angst on that front, too.
No doubt.
We'll have that discussion coming your way on Balloon Party as well. This is 101 ESPN. Munganast, St. Louis Acura, Munganast, Burkhardt, Alton Toyota, presenting sponsor of Balloon Party on 101 ESPN and the 101 ESPN YouTube channel, the place that I go to get my cars, the place my family goes to get their cars, the place we recommend you go to get your cars, not just because they're a sponsor, but because I've gotten to know the people there, and I know they go out of their way to make sure your customer service experience is second to none. Jamie Burkhardt, Clayton Patterson, Peter Munganast, Ryan Seiberg are all names that I've gotten to know over the last few years and think the world of. And Jamie has a deal for TMA listeners, but we carry it over to Balloon Party, and it is the following. No money down, 2024 Acura MDX Premium, $589 a month, 48-month lease. That's right. That is what's going on right now at Munganast, St. Louis Acura, and Munganast Burkhardt, Alton Toyota. Just go online to check it out for yourself at stlouisacura.com and at altontoyota.com. Welcome back. This is Balloon Party, 101 ESPN. Different kind of program today because Jeremy Rutherford joined us right out of the gate to discuss the breaking news that Drew Bannister has been named Blues head coach. Press conference coming your way at 11 o'clock. Jackson, are you going to host that press conference, or how's that going to play?
I was hoping to get in there and ask some questions. You know,
hold people accountable?
Like raise my hand, but like, you know, when you raise your hand and like you hold it up because you're been holding it up for so long. And I was hoping to get some of that and say like...
But they scheduled it at 11, so you couldn't be there.
Right, which I thought was because they knew I was going to ask the toughest question of all, which is Darvin Ham, was he just overlooked? You know,
You're going to ask Doug Armstrong about the former Laker head coach.
Yeah, the erstwhile Laker coach, if, you know, he was an option. But then Bannister at 11:15 as well, which will also be on the station. So plenty of great stuff for Blues fans coming up in the next hour and some change.
There you go. Send your text in. What is your reaction to the Drew Bannister hiring? I'm curious. Yay or nay? Excited? Not excited? 314-399-9646. And, of course, the YouTube chat, which is active as the day is long. I see Tiny Peepee's in there, of course. Do you pronounce that IROX11?
Yeah, I'll go with
Clayton
IROX.
Davis and Cat Dad Gamer are in there, all talking it over with, let's see what we got in there right now. 147 people talking it over in the TMA, not TMA, 101 ESPN chat. And maybe there's a Venn diagram of TMA listeners in there, Jackson. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that there is
If guys start flirting with each other, that's when we know it's the TMA listener.
Yeah, that's the TMA
That's
effect.
usually the Teddy KGB Oreo of a TMA listener. Jackson, we've got a lot of things going on here with the Blues hiring Drew Bannister. The Cardinals lose again last night, and we got to talk about it, and we got to talk about it all. So I yield to the Little Piddles Tuesday topics.
Little Piddles Tuesday of Destiny.
Now, what is...
I just try, keep the listeners on their toes.
Right.
The last thing you want to become is stale. And I think the last thing we are is stale.
Nice.
We're fresh as the day is long.
Amen.
At this point in the season, what do you think most Cardinal fans would want to see happen after the team drops yet another game to the Mets last evening, both in the world of possibility and outside what we think will actually happen? And what if they're in a similar boat, and let's say at the start of June?
Wow. What is going on with the team offensively is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I can't emphasize it enough. There are a couple of columns that I enjoy giving recommended podcasts and recommended reading. And I will give you recommended reading from The Athletic with Katie Wu's piece on the Cardinals offense, and Bernie Miklasz, Scoops with Danny Mac, and his explanation of what is going on. And I will read some excerpts, but in fairness to both these people, I would recommend reading them in their entirety because Bernie really breaks it down, as does Katie. The title of her column is 3 Cardinal Takeaways, Evaluating the Heart of the Order Amid Offensive Outage. They entered play with the lowest OPS in the National League. That's 625. What?
Yep. Hammering it.
Yep. And you got a few fun facts for no and tell here. Paul Goldschmidt doesn't have a hit in May. It's May 7th.
He doesn't have that many play appearances.
He's 0 for his last 18.
Okay.
Paul Goldschmidt is at 203, 297, 273. His numbers have, in parentheses, obviously nosedived. His metrics are down across the board, including average exit velocity of 90.6, barrel percentage 4.9, and hard hit percentage 43.2. But Katie writes the most concerning area is his strikeout rate. He's striking out 30% of the time. And she describes that as a perplexing development for a player who has built a career by being selective at the plate. What's even more concerning is he struggles against sliders. Opposing pitchers are throwing sliders to Goldschmidt 20% of the time, and he is whiffing on 44% of them. Then you have Nolan Arenado. He's at 286, and he has driven in 19, but it's his slugging numbers that are big-time concerning. 35 games into the season, he has just 2 home runs. His slugging percentage is at 391. His career average for the record is 525. And you got this is where Bernie really dives into it, but Katie also writes about it. The pull side power hitters has been one of the strengths for Arenado throughout his career, but his batted ball data is borderline unrecognizable. His average exit velocity is just above 85 miles an hour, and he has barreled 2 balls all season. It's less about discipline for Arenado, who is still working walks and finding ways to get on base. It's more about his inability to do damage on pitches he wants, which is an alarming new trend. Bernie breaks down 4 factors, and again, this is on Scoops with Danny Mac, Katie Woos on The Athletic. The Cardinals are receiving the second highest number of what he calls meatball pitches. Mm-hmm. They're getting meatball pitches 8.2% of the pitches that are thrown to them. And that's the second highest percentage among the 30 teams in baseball. But their hitters aren't taking advantage of them. They've swung at meatball servings only 73% of the time, and that is the 3rd lowest rate among the 30 team. So you're getting the second highest amount of juicy pitches, but only 2 teams are swinging at them fewer times than the Cardinals. So that's one point. The Cardinals are just not hitting the ball hard. They rank 25th in hard hit rate and 26th in barrel rate. And so that's why they have a .330 slugging percentage, and that is 29th overall in baseball and last in the National League. I'm just going to operate on the premise that it's the White Sox who are last without checking. The team that came in here and just won 2 of 3. The Cardinals and 4-seam fastballs. This is really getting into the weeds, but you're listening to a sports talk station, so you want the information. Here you go. Tip of the cap to Bernie for putting it together and scoopswithdannymac.com. Opponents have figured it out because 33% of all pitches thrown against the Cardinals right now are 4-seam fastball. That's the 6th highest rate in the majors against a team. You would usually think you're getting fastballs. That's going to be an opportunity in Major League Baseball. Obviously, guys are throwing much harder now. The Cardinals are batting .202 against 4-seamers, and that ranks 29th and last in the National League. They're slugging .303 against the 4-seam fastball. That's also 29th overall and last in the National League. Only 3 teams have struck out more often than the Cardinals against 4-seamers. And then finally, the Cardinals are not pulling the ball in the air, and that is unplugging their power. And so he breaks it down as far as pulled fly balls. The Cardinals have only 50 pulled fly balls in fair territory this year. 35 games. 50 pulled fly balls in fair territory. I mean, when I read that, I'm like, I wonder if that's but it's accurate. That's the lowest number in the majors by any team. Not surprisingly, the Cardinals have the fewest home runs in the majors on pulled fly balls. They have hit 13. Here are the individual scorecards on pulled fly balls. Again, this is courtesy of the work done by Bernie Miklas at scoopswithdannymac.com. Nolan Arenado has 9, but 1 home run. Brendan Donovan has 8 with 3 home runs. Contreras 5, 2 home runs. Goldschmidt 5, 1 home run. Herrera 5, 3 home runs. That's a nice percentage there from him. And he came through last night with his ball to the gap. Nolan Gorman 3 with 1 home run. Nootbaar 3, 1 home run. Wynn 3, no home runs. Victor Scott 3, no home runs. Burleson 2, 1 home run. And the one that actually is the most damning, Jordan Walker, 1 pulled fly ball in fair territory, and of course, no home runs. That's right. Walker pulled only 1 fly ball to left field this season before his demotion to AAA Memphis. Last season, he pulled 23 fly balls to left, and 11 went for home runs. So you get the idea of what is going on. There is the data-driven explanation. And therefore, what I would tell you is there are so many problems, as Katie and Bernie detail. There are so many problems that I think, and I'll include myself in this, and I would imagine a number of you in the audience have thought this way too. There's no way that they can continue to perform this poorly offensively. Inevitably, it's just going to turn around. But when you list out all of these reasons and all of the last place or second to last place, thank God for the White Sox, in baseball where the Cardinals are, you go, holy crap. They have a myriad of offensive issues. It's not just limited to the fastball. It's damning with the fastball. It's not just limited to the slider. They're choosing to throw Paul Goldschmidt sliders because he can't hit them. They have issues up and down the lineup. They're not pulling the ball. They're getting opportunities to hit. They're not swinging at them. And that's not something that just is like going to flip. In other words, let me put it this way. If they were barreling balls, if they were pulling balls, and they were hitting them hard, you'd go, okay, this sucks, but inevitably it's about to turn. It's not close. Statistically, of course, can it happen? Sure, it can happen. But when you hear all of that, what that tells me is that it's not particularly close. And that is a big concern. Why? Because your question was, what if it's like this in June? At this point, June's only 24 days away, and this thing continues to spiral, and we have more than 24 games worth of data to analyze right now, and it's damning. 10:33 in St. Louis. Your thoughts on those numbers? This is Balloon Party 101 ESPN.
Hey, this is Action Jackson with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals lose last night, final score of 4-3 to the Mets. They take on the Mets again tonight. 6:45 first pitch. Miles Michaelis on the bump for the Cardinals. And last night, the Knicks defeat the Pacers 121-117 behind a 43-point performance from Jalen Brunson. They take a 1-0 lead in that series. Meanwhile, the Timberwolves rout the Nuggets 106-80 in dominating fashion. They take the first two games of the series in Denver as it heads back to Minneapolis. That was another Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Welcome back, 101 ESPN. Tim McKernan, Jackson Burkett with you for about another 21 minutes, and then we'll have the Doug Armstrong, Drew Bannister press conference coming your way right here on 101 ESPN as the Blues name Bannister the full-time coach. Press conference coming your way in 20 minutes. Jackson, we have discussed it with Jeremy Rutherford. If you missed that, you can go back and podcast Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers podcast, 101 ESPN app, or the TMA STL app, where all of our content is available. TMA celebrating its 20th anniversary in 2 months.
Yeah, wow. Jeez, that is crazy.
And you're only 26.
I am only 26, yeah.
You were 6, though, when you started emailing into the show.
7. I was 7. It was right around my 7th birthday is when I started emailing in and winning many prizes, almost Kiss shows and stuff.
Yeah, unbelievable prizes. And then also the Tim McKernan Show podcast. And I believe we were going to record a new episode. T. McKernan at InsideSTL.com. Questions, comments, hate mail. Welcome. TMCKERNAN at InsideSTL.com. Any topic we'll do does not have to be sports related. Jackson, we're in the middle of the Tuesday Topics of Destiny.
Little Piddles Tuesday of Destiny.
Tuesday of Destiny.
If things persist with the Cardinals and the way things are going, I can't imagine a major shift happening over the next few weeks. What will get them to ultimately change their philosophy and do some self-reflection to change their mindset around the franchise? It can't be as simple as Mozeliak's exit, can it? Are the siren songs of the B-Fib possibly rooted in truth? Will people not going to the game or supporting the club change the culture? Who needs to raise their hand and admit they've been wrong, and who's next to usher in a brighter future?
It always starts at the top.
Yeah.
So I think if you continue to see crowds like you saw last night, you will see a change.
Yeah. Simple as that. But does that change come from
Bill DeWitt?
Right. But starting with GM? I mean, Mozeliak's done in less than a year and a half.
That's right.
So do you even make a move like that in the downtime in between? Like, do you let him finish it out? I assume that they would. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that he finishes it out. He's already kind of announced that that'll be the end for him.
Right.
So he built himself some equity and that he's got a landing spot. So you have that. I feel like that's not talked about enough. Because I think people fire Mozeliak. I'm like, I mean, he's already announced his retirement.
They just put out the door kind of already.
I just don't think that that's the direction they're going to go. People just want somebody to get fired. They're calling for firings of people. I don't think people even know who they are or what they would look like if they walked past them on the street.
Packy
Naughton? Or no, there's another Packy.
Ellsmeyer.
Packy Ellsmeyer, yeah. But I will say, with all of the data that I read off that Bernie Miklasz and Katie Wu compiled for their 2 respective columns, it's one thing if it's a couple players. It's damn near the entire roster.
Yeah, man.
So that speaks to approach.
Yeah, it's not like Kevin Costner's speech in Bull Durham where he talks about one extra hit a week, a grounder with eyes, a dying quail that's going to raise your average 50. This is cataclysmic bad offense. Like, It is. This isn't something that's going to change.
And because the offense is so bad, one of the narratives I feel like that's going around that isn't necessarily really accurate is, well, the pitching's been good. The pitching's still bottom of the league, bottom half. It's not the bottom like the offense is. It's been, I guess, fine if you want to, depends on what your expectations were. Sonny Gray has been insane, but the team still isn't winning or necessarily locked into winning his games because they still don't score runs.
Right.
So it isn't just like, once these guys get going, it's everybody minus Contreras and it was Mason Wynn. He's cooled off.
Yeah.
And as I said at the outset of the show, Goldschmidt is 0 for the month of May. These aren't hard hit outs. These are guys swinging and missing or with weak contact. And, and I think kind of breaking down numbers in depth, if you're not like on the radio, for example, like on a podcast where you're looking for it, that's a different kind of conversation. I think it can make people's eyes glaze over. They'd rather scream about Bill DeWitt hoarding money and Ollie Marmol's, demeanor. But if you're asking for an explanation, the numbers help explain what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to spend hours and hours and hours on it, but I mean, what both Katie and Bernie have assembled help explain it, because you're going, well, how did Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado turn into pedestrian hitters or actually liabilities?
Yeah.
Well, there's your explanation. The thing is, it's not limited to those two guys. And on top of it, it's not like the Cardinals are necessarily being pitched tough. They're getting, as Bernie wrote, the second highest percentage of juicy pitches, meatballs, and yet they're swinging at them at the third lowest rate in baseball. So I think that can speak more to approach. So do with that what you will, but if that speaks to an issue from an organizational standpoint with how they're approaching at bats, and I would say after 35 games, there is clearly an issue, then you do make some semblance of a change. And I think that's what frustrates fans at the most, is we've seen this now for a while.
Yeah.
And where is the change?
Right.
The change was when Mike Schilt pushed back, and then he got whacked. And so all that does is add to the belief that if you don't say yes, 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 then you go, go, go. And that is what pisses people off.
Wow. Yeah, ain't that the truth? And to add insult to injury, the way that the Cardinals play baseball is terrible for people trying to go to the game and watch the game. Like if they were losing, like if they had bad pitching problems, the offense, like if they were losing 9-8, 10-9, 11-10, at least you'd go to the ballpark and enjoy some batted balls. This is like the most boring death by 1,000 paper cuts baseball you could ever see. Like, it is not fun product to view. And if you're trying to get people to go downtown and go to the game, which is hard enough on its own, and you're putting up 3 runs and most of it's coming off sac flies or double plays where a run scores or catcher interference, Lord, that is not going to get people to buy tickets and certainly not going to get them to watch on TV.
I guess they're fortunate from an attendance standpoint that they have a great homestand with regard to the opponents, the Red Sox, Orioles, and Cubs.
Yep.
I mean, if those games are empty, right as school's ending, because that ends on Memorial Day weekend, wow.
Yeah.
That would really say something. I don't expect it. I mean, again, Red Sox, Orioles, Cubs. I realized a few years ago you go, well, Orioles, but now the Orioles with their young players and that offense, Corbin Burns, I mean, that's a different operation than it was a couple of years ago. Red Sox speak for themselves, and a Cubs Memorial Day weekend series speaks for itself. But, as we heard from Mike Florio yesterday, the Battle Hawks are right there with the Cardinals for Saturday attendance, and they're playing at the same time. And not exactly the Lambeau Field of football stadiums. 1047 in St. Louis. Your thoughts. Welcome. 314-399-9646. Air Comfort Service text line. And the YouTube chat is open for your participation. This is Balloon Party on 101 ESPN. Hey, this is Tim McKernan for the Bath Authority. If your bath or shower is old, outdated, has mold, mildew, or broken tiles, you got to call my friends at the Bath Authority. The Bath Authority provides the highest quality bathroom remodeling products along with a world-class customer experience. Their modern, durable tubs and showers are designed with an exclusive high-tech polymer liner. And what that means to you is it'll be low maintenance, resistant to mold and mildew, easy to clean, and last for decades. Plus, it comes with a lifetime warranty. Walk-in tubs, replacement showers, tub-to-shower conversions, and more. Every unit's custom built. You pick the premium accents and accessories, including safety features like low-profile showers, grab bars, and shower seats. All Bath Authority products are 100% made in the USA and can be installed in as little as 1 day by certified factory technicians. Call today, 314-347-0410, and get $1,500 off a new shower or bath, plus 36 months of interest-free financing. You're their priority at the Bath Authority. Elevate your bathroom to a new level of luxury, style, and safety. Call today, 314 844-347-0410 to schedule your free in-home estimate today and get $1,500 off a new shower or bath plus 36 months of interest-free financing. Restrictions apply. TheBathAuthority.com. A better bath awaits. Tim McKernan, Jackson Burkett with you. This is Balloon Party 101 ESPN, driven by Munganess, St. Louis Acura, Munganess, Burkhardt, Alton, Toyota. And Jackson, we are going to get out of the program today a little early because we need to set the stage for the Blues press conference at the top of the hour. Doug Armstrong, Drew Bannister, as Drew Bannister becomes the full-time Blues head coach. I'm not seeing a high approval rating on this move.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering where the fan base would be, because they played some good hockey under Drew Bannister towards the end of the season there. I don't think there's any denying that. Wasn't good enough necessarily at the end of the playoffs, but they're pretty damn good there for a good month and a half stretch. Obviously some weird losses in there, but against like teams like the Canucks, or just, were they good against the Canucks or bad? They were good against somebody. Well, this take's gone great.
They were good against the Canucks.
Okay, yeah. Trust your gut, kid. Trust your gut. So I think there's got to be some hope, but I also think just in general, they might have looked around and coaches might have been like, not necessarily interested in doing a 2-3 year rebuild.
Yeah, some of the bigger names that have been established, sure, absolutely. Yeah, but yeah, I would say the approval rating, JR said he's seeing about 60% negative, 40% positive. The Blues were 11 games over 500 with Bannister there. I don't know. I still go back to I don't know why Craig Berube isn't still head coach, honestly.
Yeah, I think.
And I think that probably colors some people's opinions. I think it certainly colors mine.
I think it's a majority. I think the majority would tell you, like, given three options, Bannister is full-time head coach, someone else, the field would be the full-time head coach, or you never fired Berube in the first place. I would bet the lion's share of the votes go to the latter.
And I think, here's what I think the core issue. I don't think it's necessarily anti-Drew Bannister so much as what hiring Drew Bannister tells fans is, or at least what fans I think tells them is, we're not close. Because if we're close, we're not putting him behind the bench. So it's not necessarily a personal thing on him. Every NHL coach at one point was unproven.
Yep.
That's just kind of logical. But eventually, some have track records of success. Some have track records of failure. Some have outlier statistics, like Pete DeBoer and being, 7-0 in Game 7s.
That is crazy.
Does he do something differently than other coaches? I have no idea. But once you win a Stanley Cup, you're up in a different level.
Yep.
Berube has done that. And then you bring in somebody who was with the AHL as your full-time guy, not your interim guy, and fans who want to see it turn go, oh, man, well, this means they don't think they're close. Yeah. And I think that's what the frustration of the announcement is about. But I always, listen, when Doug Armstrong talks, I believe him.
Yeah, definitely.
So I will be intrigued to hear what he has to say here, and it will come your way in a matter of moments on 101 ESPN. The entire press conference airing live here on 101 ESPN. And then BK and Ferrario will be following it up with giving their perspective on what they heard. So in a matter of about 4 minutes, we will take it live to the Blues press conference here to hear from Doug Armstrong and Drew Bannister. Thanks to Jeremy Rutherford for joining us on short notice with this announcement regarding Bannister getting the full-time job. And as always, to our very active audience in the YouTube chat and the Air Comfort Service text line. For Jackson Burkett, I'm Tim McKernan. This has been Balloon Party on 101 ESPN.